Hello, friends. Welcome to Akul Mac Live, and I am Chandrakant. India is a union of states, and there was a major exercise done earlier in 50s, soon after India got independence in 1947, to integrate India from all these dominions and princely states. And one of such state was Jammu and Kashmir. So, in today's episode, we will discuss about how the integration of Jammu and Kashmir happened in India. Before we start our discussion, I must tell you that there is a giveaway. Please stick around till the end of this video, as in the end, we will tell you how you can win your free gift. Welcome back, friends, and today we will discuss about how Jammu and Kashmir, state of Jammu and Kashmir, or JNK as we call it, got integrated into India. And for this discussion, let me invite my friend from Ahmedabad, Mr. Jeet Bhatt, who is also practicing advocate in Ahmedabad High Court. So without further ado, let's begin our discussion.
Hello, Chandrakant. Good afternoon, and thank you for having me on your show. Yes, today we are going to discuss about the integration of Jammu and Kashmir into India and the historical aspect of how it got integrated. But before we delve into 1947, a brief history of the rulers in Kashmir is interesting. As till the 14th century, Kashmir was ruled by the Buddhist and Hindu dynasties. And the earliest source of Kashmir is provided in the works of a famous writer named Kalhan, who has provided in detail the entire history of Kashmir in his work called Rajat Rangini. Rajat Rangini is the river of kings in Sanskrit. So certainly it was a dynasty, it was a kingdom, and it was known as the river of kings. And from the earliest sources, he has traced the history of Kashmir in this work in the 12th century. But later on in the 13th century, Kashmir first fell into the Muslim ruler named as Shamir, and who ruled Kashmir for 2 centuries till 15th century. When in 15th century Kashmir fell in the hands of Akbar, and Akbar established the Mughal emperor in the year 1587. And for the next 200 years, the Mughal emperor established its empire and also termed it as the summer residence of the Mughal emperors. And that is why we see these Shalimar Gardens and Mughal gardens in Kashmir, which were originally built by, especially the Hari Parbat fort, etc., which were built by Akbar himself and then by other Mughal rulers. So in 1752, Kashmir then passed from the Mughal Empire to the Durrani Empire under the rule of Ahmad Shah Abdali, who was the powerful ruler of Afghanistan. And he ruled Kashmir for a period of around 70 years. When in 1819, Kashmir was conquered by Maharaja Ranjit Singh, who was the Sikh ruler. So it is in 1819 that it came under the rulership of a Sikh ruler. And he had established one Ranjit Singh Dio as the commander of Jammu. And later on, who was the Dogra chief of Rajput descent. And his great grandnephew was Gulab Singh. But in 1846, the Sikh lost the Anglo-Sikh war. And therefore, in the negotiations that ensued, the Sikh Maharaja was called upon to pay an indemnity of 1 crore rupees to East India Company. And he also had to forfeit large territories in Punjab. But as the Sikh Maharaja, the Sikh ruler, was not in a position to pay this war indemnity, he ceded all his hill territories from Beas River to Indus River, which includes this Kashmir Valley, to the Britishers. Now, this was entered into the Treaty of Lahore and mentioned in that treaty, where the Sikh ruler ceded his territories to the British. But the British were not so much interested in having an administration in Kashmir at that time. And Gulab Singh, who was also the ruler of Jammu and was the great grandnephew of this Dogra chief of Rajput dynasty, who was ruling Jammu, he came forward and saw this opportunity, and he agreed to pay the war indemnity on behalf of the Sikh ruler. And he paid this 1 crore war indemnity to to the Britishers on a condition that the British give him the entire rule of Kashmir. And that is how the Treaty of Amritsar was signed on 16th March 1846, which marks the commencement of the history of Jammu and Kashmir state as a political entity. So this is how Gulab Singh became the Maharaja of state of Jammu and Kashmir. And it is the Hari Singh, the ruler of Jammu and Kashmir in 1947, is the great grandson of Gulab Singh, Maharaja Gulab Singh. Maharaja Gulab Singh's son was Ranjit Singh, and then his son and Ranjit Singh's grandson is Gulab Singh. And Ranveer Singh is important because a lot of acts in Kashmir are known after Ranveer, because Ranveer Penal Code, Ranveer Code of Procedure, also the Constitution mentions him. So Gulab Singh was the Maharaja, and he succeeded his Gadi on 23rd September 1925. So since then, Maharaja Hari Singh is the ruler of Jammu and Kashmir, and he played an important part in acceding Jammu and Kashmir to India. But geographically, if we understand, Kashmir consisted of 4 natural regions. In the south is Jammu, in the center is the valley of Kashmir, in the north is Gilgit-Baltistan, and between Kashmir and Tibet is Ladakh. So Ladakh is predominantly Buddhist dynasty, and Buddhist people live there. But in the valley of Kashmir, Gilgit, majority are Muslims, whereas in Jammu, majority are Indians. So at the time of partition, around 77% of the entire population was Muslim, whereas only 20% were Hindus. And so it was very difficult for the Maharaja in 1947 to decide whether he wants to accede to India or Pakistan, as per the 3rd June plan of the Britishers when they were to leave India. And the paramountcy of the Britishers were to lapse. So Jammu and Kashmir was thinking whether to accede to India or Pakistan, or to remain an independent, because of the natural regions and the population it consists. Because if Hari Singh had acceded to India, it would certainly have had some repercussions in Gilgit, Baltistan, and some other areas. Whereas if it had acceded to India, to Pakistan, then the Jammus and the population of Jammu would be in some difficulty. So therefore, he was not able to decide. But he had, on 12th August 1947, entered into a standstill agreement with Pakistan. He also wrote a letter to the government of India saying, I want to enter into a standstill agreement with India. But India, at that time, the policy of India was to enter into both the Treaty of Accession as well as the Treaty of Standstill Agreement. Because standstill agreement only ensures continuity of trade, travel, communication, and similar services which were existing when the Britishers were having the paramountcy. So it was just a standstill agreement, but without a treaty of accession, instrument of accession, India was not willing to enter into a standstill agreement. So,
Jeet, I have a question here. In fact, you have explained beautifully that there was a Sikh rule established, and it was almost there for about 200 years and odd. And that is why there is a lot of Sikh lineage in Jammu and Kashmir area, and there are Dogras also there. But I think it's also open fact when you say the demography was 80-20 in favor of Muslim population. But during the Shah Jahan's reign and Aurangzeb reign, there were mass conversions done in Kashmir. And those brutal acts have been recorded in some of these gurdwaras in Delhi, where they pictorially depicts the history of Kashmir, where the atrocities were committed. And you say that 20% were Hindus, but the entire 80% population of Muslim descent were also Hindus 200 years back. So I think that is a slightly complex situation. But we would like to know exactly what happened after 1947 from you.
Yes, absolutely, Chandrakant. Yes, because till the 14th century, it was a Hindu and Buddhist dynasties which ruled. So certainly Mughals and Muslims came afterwards. So there must have been conversions. But then what happened is that Jammu and Kashmir entered into a standstill agreement with Pakistan, and also because there was contiguity with Pakistan as it was its neighboring state, and around 460 miles of border it covers with Pakistan. Also, Gilgit-Baltistan had contiguity and also road connections with Pakistan, and also the natural resources, the forest resources like timber, was being exported to Pakistan, and it was one of the major sources of revenue for Jammu and Kashmir. So they had a lot of trade with Pakistan and roads and connections in these areas like Gilgit-Baltistan, etc., which had immediate contiguity with the Pakistan dominion. So they had entered into this standstill agreement, but also talks were going on with Hari Singh, with the government of India, and Pakistan at that time had become insecure because of what had happened in Junagadh. And Junagadh, though India conducted a plebiscite, but Kashmir, the government of Pakistan was not so much in favor of conducting a plebiscite at that time. And the Lord Mountbatten, who was the last British Governor General, wanted the people to decide in case where there was a issue with regards to the ruler not being able to decide on which state to join. But because of this insecurity growing amongst Pakistan, and they stopped the supply of essential commodities in Jammu and Kashmir. So in that time, Jammu and Kashmir situation, especially Srinagar, was so bad that they had to request the government of India for 5,000 gallons of petrol to avoid complete breakdown of transport in Srinagar. And this is what the government of Pakistan was trying to play and pressurize Kashmir to accede to Pakistan. They were also conducting military pressure of hit and run and border raids in the border areas, and also trying to increase insurgency, which ultimately on 22nd October 1947 resulted into an around 5,000 to 10,000 raiders, the tribesmen who attacked Kashmir, the state of Kashmir, and due to which on 24th October 1947, Hari Singh was extremely, the Maharaja, was in a precarious situation, and he made an urgent call to the government of India to help. So it is because of this call that Lord Mountbatten, Sardar Patel, Nehru all decided what was the next course to be done. But under the international law, the Indian army could not be in a position to send its troop to a autonomous state, because till that time, the state of Jammu and Kashmir was an independent state. So therefore, that was not feasible, and that would have created international pressure on India if it would have done so. So Lord Mountbatten, along with Sardar Patel, came to the conclusion that if the Maharaja was ready to accede to India, then India was in a position to send its army to Jammu and Kashmir. So therefore, on 25th of October, personals along with army, some members were sent to Kashmir, where they had a word with Raja Hari Singh, and he was asked to come to Jammu. And on 26th October, he agrees to enter into a treaty of accession and signs the treaty of accession, whereby he agrees to accede to India. So it is the instrument which was signed on 26th October 1947, by way of which the state of Jammu and Kashmir accedes to India, and which was accepted by the Governor General of India, stating that we are ready to accede to Jammu and Kashmir into India. So therefore, it is because of this treaty of accession. But I must mention one important article of this treaty of accession, which is very much material and which is right now being discussed. And it is the source of Article 370, which we popularly know. Because in the treaty of accession, Maharaja Hari Singh has mentioned and has been accepted by India is that nothing in this instrument shall be deemed to commit me in any way to the acceptance of any future constitution of India, or to fetter my discretion and to enter into arrangement with the government of India under any such future constitution. So therefore, the state of Jammu and Kashmir acceded with respect to three subjects, namely defense, communication, and external affairs. But it reserved its right to constitute its own constitution, and also not to concede or accept the Indian constitution as it is. So this is the clause in the instrument of accession due to which there was a special arrangement under the Indian Constitution, due to which an Article 370 was drafted, and it is through Article 370 that a special status was given to the state of Jammu and Kashmir to have an autonomy. So this is the basic history of 370. But on 26th October 1947, this instrument of accession was signed and was accepted by India. And on 27th October 1947, immediately after the accession morning, the Indian Army was airlifted to Kashmir, and without much planning, because it was to be done immediately. At such a remarkably short notice, around 100 civilian and Indian Air Force planes were mobilized to fly troops and equipments and supplies to Srinagar. The Indian Air Force and the civilian pilots rose to the occasion and worked heroically to make the airlift a success. And this was at that time unprecedented and one of its kinds operation, which was undertaken by the Indian Army. Even Lord Mountbatten, who was the supreme allied commander in the Southeast Asia and had an experience of a lot of wars, even he said that an airlift of this nature put into operation at such a not short notice was never heard of. So when the troops landed in Srinagar, the raiders, though, were in Baramulla. And therefore, the troops immediately advanced to Baramulla and were able to disperse the said raiders. And ultimately, the situation was brought under control by the by the end of November in 1947. But thereafter, there was even Pakistan had entered, brought their military, and there was almost a war between India and Pakistan, which lasted for around a year. And Pakistan occupied a lot of territories in Kashmir, which is known as the Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Now, at that time, by that time, the issue of Kashmir was taken over by the Ministry of External Affairs, which was headed by Jawaharlal Nehru. And therefore, the Ministry of States was not was not concerned with the issue of Kashmir, because it had already acceded into India. And therefore, it went away from the hands of Sardar Patel into the hands of Mr. Nehru. But on 31st December 1947, India sent a complaint to the United Nations Security Council, appealing it to help in order to secure peace, and therefore the appeal was made under the UN Charter, and India went to the United Nations in order to secure peace and a plebiscite. So this is how, in 1949, the United Nations Committee on India and Pakistan was formed based on our complaint to the United Nations, which sent its delegates and its report and its recommendations. But Sheikh Abdullah was made the Prime Minister of Jammu and Kashmir by the Maharaja Hari Singh at that time. So this is how the accession of Jammu and Kashmir took place by way of a war with Pakistan, and ultimately sending the Indian troops, and ultimately the Maharaja Hari Singh acceding to sign the treaty of the instrument of accession on 26th October 1947, that J&K became a part of the Indian Union.
This is very, very important lessons for us to learn. You know how such a critical and large state also got united into India, and why Pakistan was so much interested in acquiring Jammu and Kashmir. Some people say that it's because of water. So, what is your opinion? Because all the water which flows into Pakistan emerges from this area. From your point of view, is it the water treaty which was causing trouble in the mind of Pakistani rulers at that time?
In fact, I think it was water as well as trade, and also contiguity, and also the some areas of Kashmir, because of its demography, that Pakistan was very much keen on acquiring Kashmir as a part of the Pakistan Union. But Kashmir, I think they always, even the Maharaja wanted to have a separate and independent state. But since because of this attack, he had to join and accede into India, and we had a special relationship with the state of Jammu and Kashmir by having Article 370. But basically, Pakistan immediately after coming into existence, within 3 to 4 months, because 14th August 1947, they also became independent along with India, and two dominions were formed. But within 3 to 4 months, they acted in such a manner to prejudice the people of Kashmir that Kashmir had to accede to India. So therefore, the conduct of Pakistan at that time, by sending these raiders along with the Pakistani army, training these raiders and invading Kashmir, was absolutely unjustified and a breach of international law.
Well, Jeet, J&K or Jammu and Kashmir is not the only state in India which had 370. There was Nagaland also that had 370. But then I think when India approached United Nations and UN rightfully said that it has to be done on the basis of democratic rights of the people, and the plebiscite was supposed to be done. So why it has not been conducted? Do you have any opinion on that?
Well, yes, the commission formed by the United Nations on India and Pakistan, through its resolution of 13th August 1948, carried out certain arrangements for the plebiscite, which were to be carried out by both India and Pakistan, wherein the Pakistan had to withdraw its troop as well as all the raiders from the region of Jammu and Kashmir. Also, it had to hand over the Pakistan occupied Kashmir to India, to the Indian territory, because as per the Treaty of Accession, it became the part of Indian Union. Also, it had asked the Indian government to withdraw its troop and uh, 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 and and only necessary in order to secure law and order were to be kept. Otherwise, all the troops were to be withdrawn. But Pakistan, in order to comply with this condition, never complies, and it neither asked the raiders to withdraw, neither it withdrew its troop from the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and it also never handed over the Pakistan occupied Kashmir to Indian Union, and therefore the plebiscite fell through and was not possible to conduct a plebiscite under the auspice of United Nations. So that is the reason why it could never happen.
So I think a lot of water has flown under the bridge. It's been almost like 72 years, and now finally it appears so that J&K has been finally integrated in 2019. From your point of view, what has happened really in 2019, and how Indian government integrated the entire region into India?
Well, in 2019, the presidential order was passed, uh, whereby it and the constitutional amendment, whereby it deleted Article 370 and Article 35A from the Constitution, and also it withdrew all the earlier presidential orders which were passed by the president from 1951 onwards. So, so yes, Jammu and Kashmir was part of Indian Union, but the special status that was given under Article 370 was revoked, and Article 335A, which provided the state of Jammu and Kashmir to enact laws, was also taken with regards to the permanent residents, and also with regards to immovable property and settlements in the state and employment. And therefore, now it has become a union territory rather than a state. So that is how they have integrated Jammu and Kashmir now as a union territory into the Indian Union.
I think your narration about the events which preceded after the independence of India, and in the past episodes we have discussed about Junagadh and Hyderabad, and this is a third one where a very complicated situation arose, and it has taken a lot of years, a lot of sacrifices of our soldiers and civilians to integrate J&K finally into India in 2019. So, Jeet, is it final, or the matter is still under courts, sub judice? What is going on right now?
So yes, this constitutional amendment has been challenged before the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court has already constituted a constitution bench to decide on this issue of Article 370. The matter is sub judice and pending before the Supreme Court for adjudication. So that will decide the finality on the issue of the state of Jammu and Kashmir.
All right. So we'll keep visiting this particular subject because I think the matter is still in Supreme Court and decision will be taken. So, but until now, I think this is very, very important. The way you explained, right from very early beginning, almost 1,000 years back till now, what has happened. It is very valuable lesson for all of us. So thank you, Jeet, for finding time and coming to our show today, explaining this very important lesson from history.
Thank you, Chandrakant, for having me.
So I'll catch you in the next episode. Until then, I'd like to say goodbye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
We have some unique Akulmek memorabilia which will make you look outstanding. The graphics on these corporate gifts are based on the global best business practices. To become recipient of one of these gifts for free, you have to watch this video till the end and provide your valuable comments. Or you can also share your experiences. The person who makes the best comment would be chosen to become a recipient of these beautiful Akulmek gift, absolutely free, delivered to your doorsteps. The winner would also get a chance to be invited live as a distinguished panelist during our next video. What are you waiting for, friends? Please subscribe Akulmek and smash that like button.